what does Juneteenth and freedom mean today? And is it a celebration, a call to action, or both? I am Marcus Holmes, and hello from wherever you are to wherever you are. I am in sunny Detroit, that is 84 degrees right now. And so as you're coming in, whether you are on LinkedIn Live or you are sharing this, drop in the comments where you are and what the weather is there. I was just telling our wonderful panel of guests, who you will hear from momentarily, that their accomplishments are so voluminous that they could fill up the pages of the Old Testament. I am so honored in an inaugural LinkedIn Live for me that I got some heavyweight folks to come and share with you. And so I'm gonna just pull snippets from their background, but we will have the opportunity to align you with them, connect you with them, so you can learn all of the wonderful wealth of personhood that they are. They are incredible humans, and I want to thank them. Reverend Enrico Da Vinci White is one of 4 children of the late Reverend Dr. Jerry T. White and Mrs. Frankie White, which makes him a PK kid, right?
Absolutely.
He hails from North Carolina, growing up in the Walls Memorial AME Zion Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he honed his skills to play piano and organ, equipping him to serve as the assistant to the minister of music and director of the children's choir, and serving at several churches as minister of music as well. In 1991, he was ordained as an elder in the AME Zion Church and assigned to the Marvin AME Zion Church in beautiful Waxhaw, North Carolina. Shout out to them. It's a beautiful place if you've never been there. And he had exponential growth with the congregation there. As a matter of fact, as we talk to him, we'll find out that he has had a myriad of growth opportunities throughout the various churches that he has pastored. Welcome, Pastor White. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Race relations expert and leading author, Dr. Derek L. Campbell, has seen the process for improving race relations between teachers and students fail over the decades. Is it the students? Is it the teachers? Is it leadership? Is it the parents? Or is there a different story? Dr. Campbell has been in the trenches for over 2 decades as a teacher, administrator, and consultant. And as a result, he has had a radically different view, and through his unique system has brought about a shift in the way teachers and students relate in the classroom. Dr. Campbell is sometimes referred to as the racism exterminator for his ability to successfully transform the racism perceptions that students have regarding their teachers. He is the author of the book. I was grappling, Dr. Campbell, with which of many books and products you have, but I will say he is the author of the book, Promoting Positive Racial Teacher-Student Classroom Relationships. He's had successes in a number of regions, school districts, counties, including Burlington City Schools, Camden County Technical High School, the Woodston, Pillsgrove Regional District, and more. He holds a doctorate degree in educational leadership from Rowan University. He's authored, as I stated, several books in the area of improving race relations among teachers and students, as well as enhancing marriages. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you.
And then nationally known career and diversity inclusion expert. And listen, I'm really going to take just a few of the points out of this dynamic lady. All of the guests are dynamic, but I'm telling you, because I'm in the field of human resources, I'm very excited to have her. No slight, gentlemen, no slight at all. She recently received the nod from Crane's Business as one of 2020's top HR leaders. And so we're so grateful to have her, and her work is extraordinary. She is also an author. Among her many writings is What's in Your Sandwich? 10 surefire ingredients for career success and 7 savvy ingredients to supercharge your confidence. She serves as the president and founder of Sachet LLC and the Sachet Career Academy for Women, SCA. Her company provides strategic career coaching, training, and development for leaders looking to advance their careers. I can tell you she has an extensive list of clients from Detroit Area Agency on Aging to Mercedes-Benz, from Henry Ford Health Systems to ITT Technical Institute, and every company just about in between. And many, many awards and accolades, many great initiatives that she's done, including increasing diverse talent pools for major healthcare companies by 38% by carrying out a year-long strategic workforce plan. Welcome, Joycelyn Gian Grande. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. We may have one person that may have joined us as I was going through these illustrious, I'm telling you, these illustrious introductions. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And so I think I will start with you, Pastor White. Tell us a little bit about, I know that the AME Zion has a rich history around Juneteenth celebrations in Juneteenth, but tell us a little bit about what Juneteenth means to you and where do you think we are in our quest, if you will, for freedom today?
So first, again, let me say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this great host of witnesses right here. And thank you for those wonderful words. You do wonders for my ego. I greatly appreciate that. I am a part of the AME Zion Church. I pastor the Weeping Willow AME Zion Church here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the AME Zion Church, we call ourselves the Freedom Church because we've always been in the forefront when it comes to the freedom of our people, civil rights, and we keep that in the forefront. We have a rich history of those who are part of, always a part of the civil rights movement. Even as back, I pulled off my shelf just a few moments ago, a book from one of Bishop Walls from my church, The Reality of the Black Church, which gives a history of the AME Zion Church. And within it, it talks about members that we've had, such as James Logan, Harriet Tubman, Bishop J.J. Clinton, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, who are all a part of the AME Zion Church. So we've always been in the freedom movement. And Juneteenth for us is a day of celebration, but it is also a day of charge and challenge. Because while we celebrate the fact that Juneteenth commemorates the day when all slaves were really free, it also shares that we understand that the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed nearly 3 years before supposedly had freed the slaves. But we understand that none of us is free unless all of us is free. So Juneteenth is the day that we celebrate and remember that that's the day that acknowledges that last part of us that didn't know. They had that knee of ignorance on our necks to keep us enslaved.
Thank you for that. And I will go to Dr. Derek Campbell to get your opening thoughts on race relations, which you've done a lion's share of work in this area, particularly in the educational area. Juneteenth, we heard Pastor White talk about it was 2.5 years, almost 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, some rumor, Pastor White, that was an agreement between the two sides to make sure that another harvest happened. So they wanted to be able to get another year's labor out of the people who were enslaved. That's one of the theories behind the lag time between. Of course, some say because Texas was somewhat remote from the fighting, remote from the action, that it took longer to get the message there. But today, Dr. Campbell, where are we in our Juneteenth celebration? Do we have something to celebrate around freedom? And if we do, what should we be celebrating? And what might our call to action be given our current racial equity climate?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Holmes, for that great introduction. When I go places, I'm gonna call you and let you be the person that introduced me.
I'll send the videotape.
But when I think about Juneteenth, I look at it from a systemic perspective. And the way I see it is it's just a symbol. And the way that symbols surface is through a process. But one of the things that happens, is happening in that process, is that we are going to continue to be economically deprived. And so that's the part about the holiday that disappoints me. I was looking at an article today and it was talking about the spending habits of the Black community. And so, like, I saw one picture and there were like three African-American young ladies and they were cheerleading. And I said, well, the dresses cost, the pom-poms cost. And I said, well, why can't we celebrate? We can celebrate, but how come we can't take some of that money and invest it in property as a group or invest it in stock as a group? And so when you look at how people spend on a holiday, because most people go out and they'll buy a car today, they will look at houses today, they will go out and buy food for a barbecue. I think we're sending our younger generation the wrong message. And I think that as we move forward, we have to use different types of technology. And technology doesn't exactly have to be electronic or electric. It's just a different way of doing things. We have to use and teach them to use different technology so that they don't continue this economic racial gap. And that's what really bothers me about this holiday.
Yeah, I want to double back to Pastor White. What I didn't mention and again, forgive me, there are so many facets to all of you. And welcome, LaToya Henry. I will jump back to get a little bit of your bio. Thank you for joining us. But Pastor White is also a realtor. So I was going to ask him about, economic empowerment and whether or not it makes sense to start to build consortiums of realtors, consortiums of businesses, so that we teach our young people particularly about how to empower themselves economically so that our voice begins to matter. If that would be something that we should be embedding in educational efforts as strategies very early on. What do you think about that, Pastor White?
Without a question. I was involved in real estate some years ago. And when I started pastoring in New York, I let my license in North Carolina lapse. And for the last 10 years, I had not been involved in real estate. Just recently, within the last year, I got licensed again here in North Carolina. And my main purpose of getting a real estate license really was to empower our people to own the American dream and not just be renters of the dream, because it is actually ownership and economics that really brings about the power, because things in this country don't change unless money changes minds.
And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in the number of churches that you have pastored, of course, in the AME Zion Church, you get moved around based on the bishop, based on assignments, but just about every church that you've gone to, you've grown it exponentially and paid off its debt. And so I think there is a wealth of information in that to teach people how to be great stewards of economic resources when they get them. Because one of the things I don't think that we've taught our young people is that they are free to the extent to make better choices. Even though there are the impacts of drugs in neighborhoods and gangs in neighborhoods and poverty, and there's still too many children who aren't getting the nutrition that they need daily, there are ways that we can change the structure so that we get to them the resources that they will need to make better choices, because it will be about the choices that they make. As you and I know, it's the choices that we made 20 years ago that help to get us wherever we might be today. I'm going to go to Joycelyn Giangrande. Again, I'm so honored to have you. You've done over 25 years in the diversity and inclusion space. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about the Juneteenth celebration. You know, Nike was probably the first to come out and make it a holiday at their company, giving everybody time off. Then Quicken Loans came out, Dan Gilbert, and gave his 30,000 employees the day off. And a number of organizations have followed. Some say, Joycelyn, that this might be an example of performative allyship, that companies are just stepping forward to make nice so that their conscious capitalistic efforts are not derailed. From an employer standpoint, what do you say to companies about Juneteenth celebrations and the day off? And what are your thoughts about where we are in freedom and equity?
Wow, thank you for that wonderful question and introduction. And again, I want to also thank you for the invitation to allow me to be on a panel with such prestigious panelists. And you were very strategic in getting a well-rounded approach. We have the community from the church perspective, so important in our community, from the educational perspective, and then you asked for my corporate perspective as well. Juneteenth, I think it's really important, particularly when you're looking at employers. And let me just kind of put it into context. Juneteenth is actually the longest running African-American holiday, the longest running African-American holiday. And it's also known, I'm sure many of you know all that as well, is that it's America's second Independence Day. So if it's the longest African-American holiday and the second Americans' Independence Day, it's kind of interesting that now organizations, corporations are just looking at this as potentially a holiday for their employees. And it is still something that as a country, we're still trying to get as a national holiday. So when you're asking, where are we today? We are still trying to get the recognition that we, so rightly deserve as African-American people. In the workplace, it's very interesting as well, because even though Juneteenth recognizes our liberation, our freedom, at the time, not many of the slaves knew that they were free. The information didn't get to them. And even when it did on Juneteenth, it wasn't until the 1960s that we actually truly got the civil rights where we could use public facilities and integration. And so the interesting thing from a corporate perspective for me, and how I'd like to set myself aside for, as a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, is that one of my kind of taglines, I say, I'm a strategic diversity and inclusion expert who understands the difference between just doing diversity versus building a culture that embraces it. And that's kind of the umbrella that I work under, because there's a difference between doing diversity. And a lot of organizations, as you were saying, people question their sincerity about all of these public stances that a lot of organizations are making. So is that just doing diversity? Are you in creating the environment that embraces it? And that's a whole huge difference. And so when I work with organizations, that's what I do. I focus on the culture, because if you make it just about the people, that's just half of the equation. So that's kind of my perspective. There's still a long way to go, but I always say, one mentor of mine said to me, never waste a crisis. And so, this could be another opportunity for us to refocus, to kind of leverage this opportunity to get more of the equity, and which I think is so important.
Thank you, Joyce, and I really appreciate that. And I do want to talk to you a little bit more as we move forward about what organizations might do differently. One organization, Amazon, which I'm going to be releasing a book on Amazon in probably 50 days or so. So no besmirking the Amazon, but he said, tell the employees don't do any meetings today. And I think maybe there should be meetings today, meetings of employee resource groups and affinity groups and ambassador groups to have the discussions about race relations. I think it would be a better usage of the time. Watermelon and red pop are supposed to be symbols of the celebration of Juneteenth, but I think we have to do more than celebrate on holidays. We got to reflect and look at the current crisis and the current climate and see what we can do to make a change. So I do want to talk to you a little bit more. I will double back to that. Thank you so much. You said you're honored to be here. I'm honored to have all of you here, really. I'm putting it on my resume. I don't know how I'm putting it on there yet, but I'm putting it on my resume. And to round out this collective, I have LaToya Henry, who is one of my faves. I'm going to call her one of my faves. And I haven't had the opportunity during this pandemic to see her. By this time in the year, we would have already seen each other and hugged. And so the human side of me is so excited. Part of me is so excited, LaToya, because what our panelists don't know and our listeners don't know is that you are a COVID-19 survivor. And we are so grateful that you are in recovery and you look well and look to be doing well. I know you plan to make a cameo appearance because you have so much going on. But I'm so grateful that you are here and that you are here in this Earth School as well. And I just wanted to say that to you. It's like seeing an old friend that you haven't seen in a very long time. So Latoya Henry is, I'm going to call you a serialpreneur. I mean, you do so many different things. Among the things that you do is your work with the NAACP, the Detroit chapter, which is the largest chapter of the NAACP. And you work diligently, hands-on with the sit-down dinner that everybody missed this year, right? For the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner, which I don't know if it's the largest sit-down dinner ever, but I think it must rival any sit-down dinner. And so your hands are always in that work to make sure that it goes off without a hitch. And you're the owner of your own business, LAH Strategies, where you tell brilliant stories for your customers, your clients. You tell their stories. And so we got your journalism expertise from your background in journalism. And I am so grateful to have you here. Juneteenth. What does Juneteenth mean today? I believe that, you know, we have been working to get it as a national holiday, but I think more than a holiday, we need a call to action and maybe a celebration, but I want to hear your thoughts. And welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. Welcome to the rest of the panel. First of all, yes, very glad to be here. It's been, I'm still in the recovery process, but getting out more. And today is actually my first day back in the office, so excuse if it's cluttered. But we are doing Juneteenth work today. We have an event today called Make Juneteenth Count. And we will be providing our volunteers with information to canvass certain parts of the city to continue to spread the word about the census and the upcoming elections. And we will be equipping our volunteers with PPE so that they are protected as well. So we're very excited about that. And I'm excited to be able to be in the space. A couple of weeks ago, there were protests and everything, and I wasn't ready just yet to participate in those, but I'm definitely glad to be able to be here. And so Juneteenth it's important. I think we can do both because when I first learned about Juneteenth, it was in high school, and it was my high school teacher who let us know that in Galveston and certain parts of Texas, it is a very big deal. And so they educate and celebrate. And so I believe that we should do both. And it's important. It's important for even our people who don't know, and this is probably their first time really hearing about Juneteenth. So we just have to make sure that we continue to take ownership and that we work hard for it not to be whitewashed, for there not to be, and no offense to JCPenney, but a JCPenney Juneteenth linen sale. And because we know that the commercialization of holidays can happen, will happen, and does happen. And so each year that I've been involved with the NAACP, we've always tried to do something educational, want to connect our young people because we realize not everybody may know about it. And then how can you make it? And I believe this is what's been mentioned here on this Zoom call, this panel, make things actionable items, because what does it mean? We are talking about 2 years after almost 2.5 years, when you think about it, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, that as far as we know, the last slaves found out that they were indeed free. And there is, and it's not just, it's actually an international celebration, because there is a certain part in Mexico as well where slaves had escaped, and they celebrate Juneteenth as well. So it's an international celebration. So everyone, I believe, so that's why I say celebrate and also educate in this holiday. But it's very important. I too, at first was concerned, but I realized that sometimes you got to meet people where they are. And so if these companies are taking this first step, then let's build upon this. let's not shun them, but let's build upon it and let's hold them accountable. Many corporations operate to be good corporate citizens, or at least that's what they have in their mission. So I think it's on us, whether if we consume a product for them, if we work for them, if we are somehow connected to them, then we must push back. So don't just think, okay, we did nice for 2020. Whatever you started this year, we expect that and then some next year.
Yes, thank you for that. I had a question that I wanted to ask you kind of, and Joyce one as well, because I wonder, what do you say to clients who have been used to doing performative allyship, really doing these bold statements and maybe not fully aligning their cultures with the story, especially in this current climate? So how do you advise clients that are out there taking bold stances against racism, but they don't have a diversity officer, or they don't have an internal mechanism to have the conversations, and they haven't sought equity internally in their organizations? What advice would you provide to those business leaders and owners about their allyship?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I have done is just to hold up a mirror and have them look in it. Because it's interesting, when you're a consultant, you're external to the organization. And so I always do some research before I work with a potential client. And what they say externally on their websites, their mission, vision, and values around diversity and inclusion, their diversity statements, their diversity definitions. A lot of times when I read that back to them, a lot of them have heard that just for the first time. In fact, they had no idea what they were saying externally. The marketing and communications department understood that. So, and then when you try to marry what they say externally versus what is actually being said internally, that's the wake up call. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get them to that point where they can feel open enough and courageous enough to look at the, difference between what is saying externally versus what their people are saying internally, that's where you can close that gap. And so that's what I work towards. You also have to build a relationship with companies and build that trust and understanding that they can trust that you are going to help drive them in a direction that's going to help them with that inclusion. And the way I do that is not just to say that diversity and inclusion is the nice thing to do. It should be a core business strategy, because at the end of the day, they are a business. They need to make money. They need to grow. They have to find the right talent. They have to be productive. They have to be innovative. And if you can connect those dots and use the language that they're saying that they use in terms of business strategies, I think the ears open. Where you just make it a nice thing to do, we're going to celebrate cultures or ethnicities, and we're just going to make sure that we hire diverse candidates. It's very thin. They can't see the clear line of sight, how that's going to help them long term. And so when I connect those dots, then they're much more open, to close the gap between that external face versus their internal climate.
Got it.
Yes. Yes. And so sometimes they have to take a step back because in this day and age with information, your audience will be quick to call you out, or sometimes your internal audience, which are your employees, will find it interesting. You're making this public statement, but it's not reflected in your business. So for instance, I have a close friend of mine. She is a senior level executive with a company, and she was courageous enough to point out to her boss that the HR department wrote their Black Lives Matter statement, and she told them that it was absolutely out of touch, that was not the move for them to make. And her boss appreciated her honesty, and now she is helping to have them have further conversations and to do some real training and to put some teeth to what they said. Now, of course, every situation may not be like that. So I always suggest approaching it is if they're looking to do something short term, there will be ramifications if they're just trying to make a gloss over statement. But if you're truly looking to value diversity and inclusion, and you're looking to accomplish something long term, then let's not only make the statement, but let's have some actionable items that you can have in place with that statement and that you are able to see it through, because it's swift. Our younger people like to practice cancel culture, and they will move quickly, as many organizations and companies are finding out. And so, for instance, the very popular coffee company that, in my mind, a whole 24 hours passed before they cleared up the whole internet gossip and rumors about whether or not what their employees were or were not able to wear. And you have to be diligent and respond quickly, but make sure it's a valid response. But sometimes if you wait too long, things can just mushroom and balloon out of hand before anybody is able to hear exactly the message that you are trying to give. So as Jocelyn mentioned, I too research my clients, because you need to know what you're potentially walking into and what you're dealing with. And some of them have blinders on and they do need to see. I mean, you can say you're practicing diversity, but still have majority white women that fit your diversity quote unquote mandate. Or you can say, well, we have people of color, but do you specifically have Black people? Like, what are your, like, where are the outreach efforts? What are you doing? And also, are you reviewing what you're doing? Because everything doesn't work for everybody. And so you mentioned about some companies they're encouraging their employees to be off today, take the time to reflect, but it may work for some companies too to do, workshops or teach-ins, or like, how do we build upon that? And so just try to create strategies that know your audience, your internal audience, your employees, and what will work best, because your employees are also a reflection. And if people see that your employees really like what you're doing too, then that too can also help your bottom line.
Yeah, I want to go to you, Pastor White, similarly, because you preached around the country, which I didn't mention in the intro, but again, there are so many nuggets about each of you. And so I know that you have white majority colleagues that are pastors. And so what are they saying? What's been their response? And what is your conversation, if any, with them about what the makeup of their leadership, their organization, whether or not the statements that they're making publicly, whether those align with what the congregation is, whether it's intergenerational, whether it's multicultural. We heard a statement recently from Rob Parsley, and he was, I won't say annihilated, but a lot of people kind of went in on Rob Parsley for his statement about racism, and the sentiment of the statement seemed to say, can we just move past this? This is the best place in the world to live. Can we just move past it? And a lot of people took objection with that. I'm wondering, for your white counterparts in pastoral ministry, whether or not there's been any dialogue around the messaging that's out there.
What I did not see or hear the Rod Parsley statement, but as soon as this gathering is over, I am going to check him out and listen to him. But though I have great respect for him, someone mentioned about being out of touch. That would have been an out of touch statement. I believe Jocelyn just said, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, said a moment ago, to never waste a crisis. I think Paul put it this way: all things work together for the good. So even in the midst of a crisis, things will work out, can work out for the good. It just really depends on what we do with that crisis and what we do to move beyond that crisis. It's interesting that here in the city of Charlotte, Greg Brown, who is an Episcopal priest here in the city, several months ago, started attending our men's fellowship when we were still physically meeting on Mondays. One of our members as a county commissioner had befriended Father Brown, and he had started coming. Well, since then, pandemic transpired. Since then, George Floyd has taken place, And he in turn has invited some of the men of his congregation, white men, who've joined us by way of Zoom on our Monday night gatherings. And just to hear, as I believe that this crisis pandemic has made others aware of that which we've known all of our lives. But now that they're forced to have that stay-at-home opportunity and do nothing but see what's going on, anyone who has any humanity, or you have to absolutely be inhumane to not feel the pain of a George Floyd. And to hear my colleagues, my white counterparts, to share and to see some of the things that they're sharing, and some who are a couple of who've been on our CEOs of major corporations here in Charlotte, to hear them say what has taken place can't take place any longer. To hear them say that we've been in error, we've made false and inaccurate statements based on our own experiences. But now that we see it from another perspective, from experiences that we now see, the 75-year-old white man in Buffalo, they see, wow, is this what's been going on? Have we had blinders on all of this time? So I'm starting to see some of my white colleagues to really get it and to take an active part. As a matter of fact, Greg Brown and I talking about when we're able to bring the congregations together, our men's fellowships together, to say, what can we do to move beyond verbiage? What can we do to move beyond these wonderful photo op moments to say we're together? What are we really going to do to bring an end to systemic racism, and particularly here in the Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina area, but then to let that grow and blossom, hopefully throughout the community and the world.
Yes, I think that is awesome. I think we do have to move beyond the verbiage, and I'm so glad to hear that there are partnerships happening in your area doing that very thing. Dr. Campbell, I want you to jump in here because I would imagine, and LaToya also works with young people as well. She is the chairperson for NAACP with the work for young people, doing an outstanding job. But I would imagine that you will see glaring inequities in education. And what is the discussion with those that are in leadership relative to those inequities and the messaging around what we're going to do now? You know, there seemed to be a whole push nationally away from really quality education, from a system-based quality education. To me, it seemed that was the push. But are you hearing any shift in messaging from your counterparts that might be on the other side?
Well, I haven't heard anything in particular, but as I was listening to the other speakers, I was thinking that this Juneteenth effort will probably dissipate within the educational realm. And the reason I say that is because you have to remember that this holiday is at the end of the year, and normally either schools have closed or they're going to half days. And so the emphasis for this holiday in the educational system is going to probably dissipate. But I do have some recommendations. When I was listening to Jocelyn, and she talked about the corporation involvement, it would be nice if they could contribute monies to teach young people economical empowerment. You know, one of the things that a lot of school districts that don't have the majority of children of color, they will put the holidays on the calendar. For example, Three Kings. If you have a school district that has majority Hispanic children, they put that holiday on the calendar. And so one of the things that can happen is school districts can put the holiday on the calendar, and then also have a unit plan on this holiday, so that this is something that continues to regurgitate or to continue to transform our young people, and it becomes important to them. But like I said before, the holiday is at the end of the school year. Most schools are going to be either closed or closing. If they're closing, this week they normally go to half a days. And so I think eventually this will become a non-holiday because we're not going to be able to use the educational system to transform it into our next generation. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I could see where that could be a challenge. And I would hope, I know in North Carolina, I have a niece who's in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and they're on a track out system. So they go year round. And so there are ways that they could build programs into, and even if they bridged programs, Latoya, into the summer programming that normally would happen. I know because of social distancing, a lot of organizations have scaled back their programming, but even if there could be bridge efforts, because people are going to do something in the summer. They're in summer school, they're in summer camp, they're in something. Parents, I know, at least in my organization, are like, we got to do something with our kids. They've never loved the teachers more than they do now. So,
and not only that, I'm sorry, Marcus, but as the previous gentleman just said, Dr. Campbell, it can be an added unit that can be taught earlier in the year. There just has to be, again, those coming to join together to speak to those at their Board of Education about the curriculum standards and what is being taught. I know that here at the Detroit Public Schools Community District, there's a gentleman by the name of Ken Coleman, and he has spoken at length to the superintendent, Dr. Vitti, about more ways to incorporate not only just Detroit local history, but add back some more elements of African American history. And Detroit has a rich tradition of that. I mean, we have schools that advocated to have African-centered education named after some prominent African Americans, such as Paul Robeson and Malcolm X. So I know that the community just has to be united, and there has to be, again, some pushback because it's all about like if it falls to the wayside, it's because we haven't pushed back enough. And so I say seize this momentum, because we don't want 5 years later from now to be like, oh, remember in 2020 when everybody was about Juneteenth, and then things are at status quo. I just want to say, because I'm sorry I have to run, and thank you all for allowing me to participate. Great conversation, and I would love to do it some more any other time. So just let me know. But thank you guys. I truly appreciate it.
yes, and health and wellness to you. So great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As I pivot, I want to read a comment from Candace Owens, and I'd like Joycelyn to get your reaction first and everybody else's reaction as well. She is coined as a political activist, and this is a tweet that she made recently, about 24 hours ago. She says, attention CEOs and business owners, please grow a spine. Stop issuing public apologies, stepping down from your boards, and posting black squares. Stop allowing the radicals in your companies to extort your brand. Everyone needs to stop playing by the left's rules. Joycelyn, hearing that, what do you think? Hearing that comment from Candace Owens, we know that she is a provocateur right now and seems to really be aligned, interestingly, perfectly aligned with the current president. But what do you think about this message that she has to CEOs? What's wrong, if anything, with this message?
Well, first of all, let me put my hair back down, because that made my hair stand up. But
the grow hair on that one.
That really did. Woo, I bristled when you read that. But the truth of the thing, I mean, it's a sad time, I think, sometimes when you look at the current presidential administration, but it is also an opportune time. And the sad part of it is that when I'm sure you're aware that the current president was looking to hold his rally on this day, not knowing or not respecting, I'm not sure which one it was, respecting that it was Juneteenth. But when he made a public statement, he made the statement that he made the holiday popular because most people didn't know about the holiday. Mm. So I don't know whether most people knew about the holiday, but the point is the president should have known about it. And so when you take that into consideration, it kind of sets the tone for the country because he's the ultimate leader of the country. But I think that comment went flat. It was tone deaf. It was probably just for a certain audience. I think most of the country, either whether they understand or are aware of Juneteenth and its meaning, I think at this point, people are willing to listen, more people than not. And I agree with Latoya before she sounded off, was the fact that we need to seize this opportunity and we need to keep it front of mind. And one of the reasons why we're talking about it today, and probably why we are, as even a panel, are talking about it, is because the protesters have not given up. They have gone on continuously keeping this front of mind, adding other initiatives to it. And we all, as a community, whether you are African American, Black, Latino, all need to stand together, and even white. And I think that's the other thing that has brought the attention to it, is that this has been an inclusive effort. And anytime major change has happened, it has been an inclusive effort where people come together from all walks of life and join together and move in the same direction. Yeah. So it's kind of great that she put out there her thoughts to a targeted audience, but I think that audience is in a minority. And if you are truly a progressive organization and company, you would know that putting out a statement like that is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of courage. And it will be continuously courageous if you put some actions behind it. And the way my phone has been ringing from organizations tells me that they are willing to take that step, that courageous step. They just need some direction. Yeah. And so a lot of companies have said, we really want to be part of the solution, but we don't know where to start, or we need to dust off our efforts and make them much more relevant to what's going on. Or how do we open the door to conversations, to have some of these difficult conversations? So I actually see organizations showing that courage. They may not know exactly the right step to take. And I think we need to allow them to maybe have some mishaps if they're willing to listen, so that they can kind of streamline it a little bit more effectively. But I think her comment was tone deaf. It was inappropriate, and I don't think it fits the times that we're in.
No, not at all. And as a matter of fact, the current and temporary resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, when he made that statement that, he made the Juneteenth famous because no one had ever heard of it before. Well, one of his staffers right there in that same meeting reminded him, since you've been in office, we made a statement each year about Juneteenth, when his response was, we have.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that he would even have a rally in Tulsa, considering the massacre that happened there on Juneteenth. It's just like, who does he surround himself with who doesn't understand what to do in crisis, and even how to leverage the people that you say you want to engage in crisis? But I thought that was really interesting.
The means is always to distract and to divert. And it was an attempt to distract, take away attention from what the day really is, to bring attention to somewhere else. But as really the movement that is now taking place has been such that, no, the distraction this time just won't work.
I think Candace's comment was a part of that distraction. Would you agree, Joycelyn? It distracts from listening to employee sentiment. So when you talk about the radicals within your organization, you want to hear from your employees what the sentiment is, because those are some of your biggest brand ambassadors. And so to make a comment to say, don't listen to them, don't listen to the ones that are objecting to whatever you're doing or telling you to do this, kind of diverts the attention from people mobilizing and organizing around employee voice and employee sentiment. What do you think, Joycelyn?
Well, I agree with you because the reason why she made that comment is obviously she's not listening. She's not listening to where we're going as a country, to the message that is being sent. So that's why her comment was, off base. But the listening to your internal community, to your people, is so critical. It is so critical to understanding and being empathic, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and really understanding what is going on. What is that experience like in your organization? Then where do you want to go forward? Whenever companies make these big moves and statements or decisions, like even though Latoya talked about the big coffee company, we probably all know which company she was referring to. But I always wonder who was in the room when they made that decision. Did they have diversity of thought, experience, perspective in that room? And when you're talking about diversity in those rooms, when you're making those kind of decisions, think broadly in terms of diversity, because also I have challenged organizations where they say, well, no, we had diversity in the room. We had people of color in that room when we made that decision. But not every African-American's perspective is not the same, and experience is not the same. So when your bench is thin, you may only have one person to tap. So it tells you that you need to get more on your bench so that you have different perspectives. Just like, a majority populations, their all experiences are different as well. So if you have just one person of color and one woman, doesn't mean that they can represent their entire group. So you need much more depth when you're making those decisions.
Okay. And so on Juneteenth or leaving Juneteenth, we're halfway through the day, depending on where you are in the world. What are the things that you would recommend as reflection or call to action that individuals can do and organizations can do? I'll start with you, Dr. Derek, if you tell us what, from an educational standpoint, especially, I'm very fascinated and would love to have you on to continue this discussion, all of you, to continue the discussion, because I don't think it's a one-off to get anywhere, but I think if we continue the collective conversation, that's where the best ideals come from, and opportunities for us to really make the kind of difference that we aspire to have in our world, in our cities, in our communities. So Dr. Derek.
I think we're going to see an increase in symptoms related to the school to prison pipeline. And I say that because many schools are planning to reopen, but they're not talking about some of the anger that may be fueling in our young people.
I want to jump in and ask you a question on that. So how do we give them the tools so that they can have these conversations? Of course, I'm thinking in my mind, because Joycelyn's a mentor, right? She could have conversations with girls. She's done work with Forum, which I didn't get to put that in your bio. I'm trying to get the highlight points. Pastor White is a pastor. So when he brings together with Pastor Brown and the men come together, they could have mentor sessions with younger people to talk about that frustration and anger. What are the tools that we can employ about getting people to have some ways to allay some of that anger? What are the tools?
Well, you have to remember that the majority of the teaching force is white female, okay? And so the tools that they're going to need is they're going to have to be able to shift the perception that the young people may have regarding them. As interesting as I talk about this, I think about there are many whites that have been arrested during these demonstrations for burning stuff down. Mm-hmm. And so now that even kind of highlights the perception that many of them may have regarding these white teachers. And so they're going to have to prepare themselves to be able to say to young people, no, we're here for you. Not, no, I don't like your behavior. Let's get you out of here. And so, but that requires a shift in mindset.
Do you think they would benefit at all from some strategies around emotional intelligence that, talking about social cues and understanding with more empathy, teaching, building more empathic teaching so that they understand the stark realities that a student is dealing with, informs how he or she shows up and brings their authentic self to school, to learning opportunities. Maybe there are opportunities to build in some of those strategies.
I think they have to talk about racism, because when we talk about social and we talk about emotional, I think the problem is we're putting them all in that same bucket again, but we're just using a different tool. I think we have to talk about racism, and they have to be able to talk about racism. It was interesting. I was online with this other young lady, and she was talking about, she's a preschool teacher, and she was talking about how she interacts with them, and she got into the social emotional verbiage. Kids not going to see social emotional. They're going to see, I'm Black, I'm Hispanic, you're white, we have differences. What are you going to do to overcome that difference? And when you place that to the side, you're not solving the problem. You're just putting a little Band-Aid on it, and then eventually it's going to explode. And so I think the school districts, as they continue to plan to open, they have to plan to shift the perception of the teachers.
Okay.
Because the kids are, I'm telling you, the kids are going to come in with it.
Got it. Pastor White, what are the things that we can do from reflection to call to action as we leave Juneteenth? Should we leave Juneteenth? Should it be with us 365?
When we forget the lessons of history, history is then doomed to repeat itself. Mm-hmm. And if we forget what Juneteenth is and why we celebrate it, we'll find ourselves going right back down a slippery slope. And what happens then is we forget. We forget. And when we forget, or when we pretend we don't remember, we don't even share with the next generation that which we've been through to help them to really understand how they got to where they now are. There was a gentleman of our former congregation in Waxhaw who was, as the protest had just started several weeks ago over the George Floyd murder, that there was some young people rioting and just destroying things here in the city of Charlotte. And one of my older members was sharing, young man, that really isn't the way to make the difference. I know your frustration, I know your anger, but destroying isn't the way. And the young man's response was, "Oh man, we don't want to hear that Martin Luther King stuff." Mm. Well, if you really knew even the history of Martin Luther King and the things that he said and shared, you would understand more so that Martin Luther King wasn't just about the demonstration, but what impact follows the demonstration. For him, for example, the Montgomery boy boycott was not just about demonstrating, but when it hurt their pockets, when it hurt their economy, that's when a change took place. So yeah, we've got to reflect, we've got to educate, we've got to remember, but then we've got to execute a plan that plan can continue on. Even as we speak now, I'm so proud of the young people right now in the city of Charlotte. As we speak right now, there's a youth movement in Marshall Park in Uptown Charlotte that the youth themselves have put together to demonstrate and to remember Juneteenth. And as some have gathered, others by way of social media are telling others, get down here. And they're doing their part to help make a difference. We as the church have to do our part to be sure that we educate, to remind all, this is how we got here, but now we're depending on you to take this mantle and take us to the next level.
Thank you, sir. Joycelyn?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Juneteenth should stay with us. And I think it's part of our responsibility to make sure it does. I think of a saying that another mentor shared with me at one point, was saying to make sure that you act as a member and not a guest. And I think in our country, it applies too for African Americans, people of color, that we have to act as Americans with all of the rights and liberties and freedom that comes with it. we may not feel that we have it, but we have to act like it. And so if your workplace doesn't celebrate Juneteenth and it doesn't make it a holiday, or they don't have a celebration or a discussion around it, bring it up. Take the day off if you think that that's the best way to observe it. I mean, I would see people in the organization saying, you know, if they had a religious holiday or observance that the organization didn't recognize, they would say, I'm off on that day because of. So you keep it front of mind. The other thing is that I would also say a call to action would be to keep this inclusive. This is not an African American holiday. This is not a Black holiday. This is an American holiday. And if the more we keep it inclusive, the more people feel that this is about us as a country. What do we stand for? How do we make sure that everyone is treated equally and fairly? And so this has to be an inclusive effort. And I think we need to open the doors, keep that going, just like the protests have been very inclusive. That's what gotten all the attention. Any major change, I said this before, has been very inclusive. And we need to keep that. And I remember when Martin Luther King Day, when there was a fight to make that a national holiday. That's not an African American holiday. That's not a Black holiday. That is an American holiday that people of all walks of life appreciate, they enjoy, they celebrate, they talk about, they quote Dr. King from all walks of life. And I think Juneteenth needs to be that way, but we may have to make sure that it does.
Yes. Well, we're close, or we're at 102, and I want to share this about Opal Lee. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a 93-year-old historian from Texas. She and her family lived in a predominantly white neighborhood in Fort Worth, and when she was 12 years old, her family home was set to fire and vandalized. And so she went on in her life to be a teacher, an activist, and eventually in 2016, at the age of 89, she decided to walk from her home in Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. This was a part of her effort to ensure that Juneteenth became a national holiday. It's stated that she traveled 2.5 miles each day to symbolize the 2.5 years that Black Texans waited before they were notified of the Emancipation Proclamation. And so here are the words that she says are her vision for a national recognition and a celebration that will help move us beyond just celebration, but as you said, Joycelyn, for it to live with us to keep going forward. We have simply got to make people aware that none of us are free until we're all free, and we aren't free yet. There are so many disparities. You know, we need some decent education and some decent jobs that pay money, and we need healthcare and all kinds of things. And if people would just get together and address these disparities, we'd be well on our way to being the greatest country in the world. I think that's some sage advice from 93-year-old Opal Lee. And I think it's something that we could all incorporate in allowing Juneteenth to live through us. Even if it's at the end of the school holiday, Dr. Campbell, we can make it live through us by coming together, addressing the disparities, ensuring that people have access to the things that they need. Rinse and repeat is what I call it, until Juneteenth lives as an American holiday in the hearts and lives of everyone. I am so honored again, and I want to continue the conversation and have you all back. I know sometimes people say that, and this is my inaugural LinkedIn Live, but I assure you, as your schedules will permit, I will be inviting you back, because I believe we got to continue the conversation. It's a lot of conversation to cover, right? From the ecumenical status to the educational institutions, to the civic organizations, to employers. There is so much overlap and interplay, if you will, to get to a place where we can mobilize, strategize, and activate initiatives and programs that are really going to rid our system of the inequities that currently are there. And if it is to happen, it can only happen if we unite and come together. And so today, in our very small way, with very great minds, with a lot of commendations, I appreciate your input, and I hope that you will come back at the invite to share more in this discussion and conversation. Just quickly, I'm going to go around. Where can we stay connected with you? Joycelyn, how can we stay connected with you? We can connect with you on LinkedIn, and where else?
Yes, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can also connect with me on my website, jocelynjohngrande.com.
I've been saying Joycelyn all day. I'm sorry.
That's my second name. Here, the other people call me Joycelyn. So.
I'm so sorry. Pastor White, how can we keep in touch with you?
Of course, I am on LinkedIn. My Facebook is my name, Enrico White, Enrico D. White, and at the Weeping Willow AME Zion Church, weepingwillowamez.org.
All right. And Dr. Derek Campbell, how can we keep in touch with you and see all of your products and research and work?
I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a website, racismexterminator.com, and my email address is leadexterminator@racismexterminator.com.
Okay, and tell us one more, one of your books that you have, Jocelyn, one of your books that you have, Enrique, any products that you have, just quickly.
This is my original, Promoting Positive Racial Teacher-Student Classroom Relationships.
And where can we get that book? Is it on?
It's on the website. I also, I developed a facilitator's guide for school districts as well.
Yeah, I saw you had a litany of products. I'm sorry that in an hour I couldn't get to all of that, but we're going to have you together again, because in my thinking, I don't want to be a person that just convenes people to talk. I really, HR Passions, which is one of my passions outside of my work with the city of Detroit, is really about connecting people with their passions. And so I'm very much about networking. I've seen, just hearing you all, I hear a ton of network opportunities, but I'd like to get more people in the education space involved in this conversation, more people in the diversity and inclusion area, Joycelyn, to have more robust discussions about, okay, you've been doing this for 25 years, help some of the other people that are advising employers on the missteps that they could be avoiding. Pastor, you're doing a great thing with having Pastor Brown together. Maybe we could have a part of that conversation live, where we can, help other churches to start to have these conversations. I think it's important that we mobilize in respective areas and then bring back the best of those ideas to the group. And so to me, you're a part of that inaugural group that I hope to grow as an outskirt of this. I really think very much of what I know of you and really appreciate your input in that. Jocelyn, what products? I know I got one of your products, but you were so kind a couple of years ago to share one of your books with everybody in our conference, but please.
Yes, I have a series of career strategy books called What's in Your Sandwich. They are a series. So this one here is the What's in Your Sandwich, 10 Surefire Ingredients for Career Success. And it has a career strategy guide. And it's about putting the right ingredients in your career strategy. And then I have another one called What's in Your Sandwich, the 7 Savvy Ingredients to Supercharge Your Confidence. And so this is really about how do you build the confidence. Most people have asked me, how did you get the confidence to leave your corporate job and go off and start your own company? So these are the steps that I use to do that, to take a leap of faith and make it happen. I also excited to have a new book coming out in the fall. It's going to be my first diversity and inclusion book.
Wow.
And I am writing a diversity strategy guide, the steps to building a sustainable and profitable diversity and inclusion strategy. So I have that coming out in the fall, and I'm really excited. It's going to be a how-to book for organizations and putting together a successful strategy around diversity and inclusion.
I'm excited. Put me on the pre-sale list. I'm excited.
All right.
And Pastor White, I don't know if you do have products, but you know what? If you don't have products, you need to make a product around real estate investment. I think that I don't want it to be light on us that every place that you've gone as a pastor, you move them to another level in their financial stewardship. I think that's commendable, but I think that should be a product for pastors and other business owners who want to eliminate debt, who want to be savvy with resources, and who want to experience exponential growth. And see, I won't even ask you for 10%. I won't ask you for 10%.
And while there's no book or product yet, the number of people who have recently said there's a book in you So I'm in prayer on this thing right here to know, and maybe the word you just gave may be the direction to take, but there's something in here that's going to come out soon.
Right, wonderful. Thank you all. We're at 1:10, a little bit over the hour. An hour is never enough time, but I appreciate it because it was your precious time that I'm sure you charge as a consultant much more than I could afford. So I thank you so much for your time. I hope that you will be back with us. Thanks to our listening audience, both on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Have a grateful day. Happy Juneteenth and enjoy the celebration. Let it live forward in you.
Keep your hand on that plow. Hold on, hold on, hold on. No one let me come in. Doors are fastened and the windows been. Keep your hand on that plow and hold on. Hold on.
Noah said you done lost your track. Can't plow straight